Right. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good morning, wherever you may be spending some time with us on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. It's the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show presented by Yahoo Fantasy. We appreciate you rolling with us. If you haven't already, then hit that thumbs up button and please make sure you're subscribed to the Fantasy Football channel here, as we have a lot of season-long activity constantly happening, from VODs to just content here. Ben Rasa is in the house. Laffy's with us in spirit. He had something that he needed to take care of real quick, so he's off in the real world, and it's now you and I, my friend, entrusted with carrying this program. Chris is producing, so he's going to be our safety net, and I'm sure we may have to rely on the chat every now and again as well. This should be
you know what, we had so much fun over on the Awesemo Odds channel just now, breaking down Monday Night Football. We said, why don't we keep it going? And I'm excited to dive into it. It was a interesting week 6, to say the least. A lot of guys again go down. We're gonna be talking waiver wires, of course, hold them and fold them, MVPs, all the good stuff that we do in each and every week.
Now, be honest, you look at this hour every Monday, especially with Laffy, as a buffer from dealing with the bullshit of me for 35 minutes of all these crazy, wild, exotic bets that I throw at you. This is almost therapeutic back to back when you have Laffy here. So this is going to be as difficult for you as it was our pal Nick Lepre, who's in the chat, doing the Sunday morning live before lock show, watching his Miami Dolphins melt before our own eyes.
That was a tough scene for the Dolphins, but no, I'll be honest. I am more of a betting guy, but after the weekend that I had betting, I'm actually really excited to talk season-long fantasy football, because my season-long teams were great. My betting card, not so much. So let's dive into this and see what we got.
Let's do it. All right. So since Laffy isn't here, he's already given us his answers to the MVP and the MFP, and we're going to hit those as well. Let's start with you, though, and we'll do our week 6, MVP of the weekend.
So I do want to actually jump in first with the Kareem Hunt news, if you want. Do you want to do that first?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I completely bypassed that entirely.
No worries.
That's you know what it is? Honestly, you know what it is? It's 6 or 5 straight weeks of me forgetting to start with the MVP, MFP, that I've now ingrained it right into my head, that no matter what. No, perfect. Let's start with Kareem Hunt, and then we'll dive into everything else.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that is, maybe the storyline coming out of here. They were already banged up. Nick Chubb doesn't go. The Browns did not look good. And then we see Kareem Hunt go down. It did not look good. It looks like he's going to miss several weeks here. So there's a lot of questions there. I mean, the first one, of course, is, can Nick Chubb come back quickly and really mask that? And if for some reason they're both out, then you've got a real situation here, because Cleveland wants to run the ball. They need to run the ball. And they've got guys like Felton and Johnson. There's not a lot behind them. So I think that is a 3-week injury like that could really open the door for more opportunities in the Cleveland backfield. And with Nick Chubb banged up, it's hard to imagine it's just solely him now that can kind of contribute.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that myself right now, where Nick Chubb is just relegated to the bench, and you're either dealing with creativity that hopefully you've drafted ahead of time, or just constantly scouring the waiver wire. Hopefully you can streamline somebody as a result of that. Point being is that I didn't think on Friday, having that conversation about Chubb, we would be having that same conversation now about Kareem Hunt. And that's really the point here, is that this team could be SOL moving forward, at least short term, when it comes to their top 2 backs, who, let's be honest, it doesn't matter from a season-long DFS or betting standpoint. Cleveland needs those 2 guys in order to survive. We saw what happened without them.
Oh yeah, they are really hurting. It also would help if they could get their tackles back. But if you're looking at a guy like Dearness Johnson, he certainly can catch the ball. He's never going to be tasked with, in my opinion, handling 25 carries. But can he give you a handful of touches both on the ground and through the air? I think the answer is yes. So let's see how the news plays out with Nick Chubb. We see Kareem Hunt is going to certainly miss a couple of weeks. That is one of the major storylines coming out of week 6.
Real quick, I know that it's not the same position per se as, we're looking at, and we may come back to this as far as quarterbacks to stream before we get out of here, Ben. and Chris brought this up in our show chat as well, with Baker Mayfield being hurt. I think does that factor in to how you would play, even if you're looking at replacing a Chubb or Hunt on the same team, or now taking advantage of the fact that both of these guys would be out? You need a running back in general, streaming somebody, pardon me, on Cleveland. Does Baker Mayfield's injury status impact that at all for you?
I mean, certainly you want some clarity on what's going on for them, just because the team right now is really banged up. It's not just them. Odell got banged up in that game. He did return. Landry was already out. They were missing both tackles. They also play on Thursday. So like there's just a lot of moving parts here. I do think that Baker being okay and stable would be the best case scenario, because you just don't want more variables than we already have. So I think that a lot of people are going to probably pick up either Dearness Johnson or Felton, and I get it, but I think we also need to monitor the situation just to see where Cleveland is at as a team as a whole.
All right, let's look at some MVPs of the week, because that really is the big news now, and how people are dealing with it. So if you have any questions specifically about what to do with your running back status, especially with Kareem Hunt now hurt, Nick Chubb missing time, it looks like this could be a bad situation, at least short term, hit us up with any scenario that you think you may be dealing with. And, Leprey's right. You are lucky. You have to deal with me for, 30, 35. He's there for like an hour 15 every Sunday. And on top of that, he gets to see his football team lose in London. So it's like a double whammy by all means. Who is your week 6 MVP?
There was a lot of big time performances out there. I'm going to go to Darrell Henderson. It was a guy, very popular play on the DFS side of things. And the thing that I loved is that, the Rams jumped all over them, but we saw them really still give him ample opportunities in a game. They were in full control. They won by 27 points. He still had 21 carries, and that is really, really positive. Now, he was super fortunate also. He turned 3 targets into a pair of catches and an additional touchdown. So that's what really got you there. But I just love to see the volume here. It makes me very confident. You see the Rams this week. Detroit goes in to LA. It's going to be a massive spread. It's nice to know that if they really get up ahead, that Darrell Henderson's still going to have a significant role in that game, and he can provide you a ton of upside each and every week.
Hard to think that Matthew Stafford doesn't want to just pile drive.
Yeah, it could be bad.
That football team into the ground, right?
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
to your point,
Lions.
I was just going to say, a lot of carries in the second half when you're up big time.
No doubt. And the Lions are the lone, now that the Jaguars are on their 1-game winning streak, it's just the Lions. And it's just nice to know that you don't have to worry about volume as much with a guy like Henderson. Any game script, it seems like he's going to have a nice role for us.
Cooper Kupp was gigantic for me this weekend, and I think just refreshing to see, especially because with all the talk about Robert Woods, and maybe there was some concern that productivity dipped. It really only dipped in that loss against the Arizona Cardinals. Every other win, he is once again instrumental. And look, when you're up 38-11, and that's the final score. Scorigami, by the way, thanks to Lofty for shouting that out. I would not have known. I'm sure you loved that one. 38-11, first time ever we got that score.
I was very excited. I had multiple DMs from Chris and multiple other people saying Scorigami, baby. So yeah, we had that. And Cooper Kupp, I mean, there was a little dip, and in my opinion, he got a little too premium priced, but this guy is just unbelievable. Stafford, that's his alpha on the outside, prolific offense.
Great.
You could do a lot worse than Cooper Kupp each and every week.
He's posted at least 92 yards in all but one of the Rams games. And in all of those games, except for one that he's posted at least 92, he's had a touchdown. 3 of those games, he's had 2 touchdowns, including what just happened. And here's the thing is good team, good game. Again, they got killed against the Cardinals, so that's the lone exception. But every game that they're in and that they're beating teams, beating up on teams, he's the reason why. And that's refreshing, I think, week in, week out, that you can count on that this isn't some Buck scenario, that this is some Cardinals scenario where there might be some rotation. So he was my MVP. Now, looking at Lofty's, and I love that he brings up Jonathan Taylor. because on Friday with myself, Lofty, and Matt Savoca, we did this little thing at the end where we each predicted a player who would be the 30-point club, who would be in the 30-plus point club. And I had Jonathan Taylor, and I'm sure the two of them were rolling their eyes like, what the hell is this guy doing here? Bringing the segment down, throwing out some crazy Jonathan Taylor play. And boy, did he have himself a game. It was the Texans, but he had himself a game, Rasa.
He certainly did. This is, I think, we're starting to see Indianapolis find it a little bit. They gave that game away against Baltimore, but they look pretty good lately. Wentz, I think, has been good. They get T.Y. Hilton back, Pittman, but Jonathan Taylor is the centerpiece. They want to run the ball. He was fantastic. And yes, it was the Texans, but if you're going to give him volume on the ground, you sprinkle in a target here and there. I mean, what's there to say? This is a guy who's ready to handle the workload. And I think we're starting to see the Colts lean on him heavily here in games they absolutely have to have.
Before we get to our MFP, something interesting on the chat, because we talk a lot about start sits and looking ahead to each week, but very rarely, because it doesn't usually come up either in conversation or with chat, do we look at going into a Monday night game from more of a buyer's remorse. And Richard says, well, bench CD for A.J. Brown. Do you think there's any possibility at all that A.J. Brown has himself a night to where Richard isn't looking at this like buyer's remorse or seller's remorse, whatever the hell the remorse would be about benching CD Lamb for A.J. Brown?
I mean, obviously, it doesn't look great right now, but A.J. Brown is certainly a player. It's a healthy total. I think there's some positives to take away. 53.5-point total. Titans are 6-point dogs at home. There's a real scenario. Again, we talked about this over on the Awesemo Odds channel just now, where Tannehill has to drop back 40 plus times. And even though Julio is back, A.J. Brown has massive upside in games like this. I do worry. Buffalo's secondary is very, very good, and they're going to challenge him, but this is a big time player. So, CD Lamb and the Cowboys got it done, but maybe I'll be rooting for you because I hope the Titans play well tonight. Hopefully A.J. Brown can find that end zone.
Look, from a financial standpoint, and nice little plug is why you should be watching the Awesemo betting show on the Awesemo Odds channel before here. Both Ben and I have a nice little stake in A.J. Brown playing well. Different means to the same end, correct, which is cashing tickets, right?
No doubt about it. And it's going to be fascinating. There's a lot of, we saw the Cooper Kupps of the world on that side really explode, and then kind of leading us into the MFPs. I almost went with Devontae Adams because he was kind of a no-show in a game that the Packers still got it done.
Well, why don't you segue into that, who you're most frustrating? And we're still trying to determine what the F and MFP stands for.
Yeah, a lot of options. This is Lofty's creation. So for me, it's not a guy, I don't think this is like the most obvious name, but it goes to an overarching point with the Bengals right now. T. Higgins is really going to have to take a backseat. It looks like possibly permanently in this offense. He's getting decent amount of targets. He had another 6 in a game that they were very comfortably up, but with Jamar Chase emerging as just an absolute home run, can't miss type of a guy, and still Joe Mixon in this backfield commanding massive work. I worry about Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins sometimes about how they can coexist on an offense where Joe Burrow now is not having to drop back 50 times because they're better. And when he's only throwing the ball 30 times with these other top end talents, I worry about T. Higgins kind of in terms of ceiling and just even floor at times. So I really liked him yesterday, but again, we saw other Bengals get it done ahead of him. And I think that could be a theme in a lot of weeks.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because he's definitely not, I think, on the biggest radar, but he's also something that is speaking volumes to how you laid out this offense and really the definition or personality kind of identity is probably the best way to put it for their offense. So mine was Mike Williams because I think that there was the expectation, and not only for me personally that he killed me this week, but we're now 4 straight weeks. It's 2 insane weeks and 2 weeks of, does this guy even play for the same team? Is he even on the Chargers anymore? And that's pretty wide. Like, that's a wide gap of volatility for Mike Williams, who for the first, 3 weeks of the season, if you include that first week of the last 4, I know there's a lot of numbers, a lot of math, but follow me. Mike Williams was on this tear. And then all of a sudden it's been hit or miss, but the hit has been multiple home runs out of the ballpark. And the miss again has been, oh my goodness, what do we do? This guy stinks. 2 grabs for 27 yards in a game in which they were down and should have been throwing and taking better advantage of it. Now, granted, everybody there was a problem. That was a collective failure, but that's also part of the frustration of Mike Williams this week for me, Ben.
The range of outcomes with him is certainly massive. And even with the Chargers themselves, they are a very Jekyll and Hyde type team to me at times. Incredible what they did against Cleveland. They could not get it going against Baltimore. So for me, Mike Williams, listen, it's been a fantastic start to the season. I think his stock is as high as it's ever going to be with the amount of touchdowns that he's caught. They still have Keenan Allen. They've got Eckler. So I'm not saying I wasn't surprised by just a 2-reception effort, but you're going to have some games like that, a product of just a team, and Mike Williams, I think, coming in running so hot early in the year.
Lofty's is McLaurin, and clearly the Washington offense did not live up to expectations. There was a bad drop as well. I know that there was concern about how healthy he was coming into the game, but for him being out there and healthy enough to be the impact player that I think we could expect against, of all defenses, Ben Rasa, the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which is ridiculously easy to throw on, I would definitely concur, and I could feel a lot of people's frustrations if he went into battle relying on McLaurin this week.
No doubt. And you look at the peripherals, Heineke threw the ball 39 times, and you think, wow, okay, this is going to give us a real opportunity to get there. And he still had less than 200 yards passing. That is really disappointing. McLaurin's got the hamstring. I just worry about where this offense is at. So that was definitely a downer for Washington backers.
Interesting question here on the chat as we move now into a couple of other fun things that we have teed up for you. Hold them, fold them, some streaming options as well. Devontae Smith for Jalen Waddle, full PPR. Any interest in making that move? You're not really getting many scoring opportunities for Devontae.
Yeah, but I mean, Miami is
Waddle. Ugh.
I don't think I would do that, and it's just tough because they're in a tailspin. Tua at times looked all right yesterday, but it's still a situation I worry about. And then you've got also Waddle at times is getting a lot, but their guys hurt. We'll see what happens with the rest of these pass catchers. Kazicki is starting to emerge as I really don't know why they don't utilize him more. To me, the Eagles, they've got problems, but the one thing, Devontae Smith is still the guy. It doesn't look pretty at times, and there's going to be some stuff and some pain points. I still think I value him a little more than Waddle at this point, though.
Yeah, 4 of 6 times this year, Jalen Hurts has gone over 30 attempts. And the other two, even Tampa, where it just doesn't make sense, defies logic why they weren't throwing at least more against that team. But you're going to have so many opportunities for Jalen Hurts to throw the football. It just stands to reason that Devontae Smith is going to be one of the heavily targeted, if not most targeted guys more often than not. So I would just play on that. And ultimately, as Ben says, it comes down to the quarterback and trust. All right, let's look at a couple of hold or fold, hold them or fold them here, and appealing to your poker days. So now we're really tapping into your brain. Let's start with Allen Robinson and your advice on what to do with A-Rob, Justin Fields, and this situation with the Chicago offense.
Yeah, this is just unfortunately pretty dire at this point. Justin Fields, he's giving them chances to win, but it's on, I think, the wrong terms. It's play conservative, lean on the defense. There's just not a lot there with Allen Robinson. We saw Fields' legs get involved a little more. None of that helps A-Rob. So he did see 7 targets, which is his highest output since week 1, but it's still not a great situation. Just 4 for 53. Reasonably, you're asking, is he going to catch the lone passing touchdown on most weeks? There's not going to be 3 or 4 passing touchdowns up for grabs. I love Allen Robinson. He's a phenomenal player, but this is just one of the worst situations you could be in for him.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that works for Robinson. That works for Mooney on a smaller scale, right? Anybody involved on this offense, that's a beautiful way to put it, which is you're basically divvying up. There's one slice left, and they're all racing for that final slice. And why would you want to live that way each and every week? If you can get away from Robinson, if you can get away even from Mooney, if you're relying on him, anybody in that capacity, Fields in starting mode has only thrown the ball for 20 times, 2 times so far. You're not getting volume for him throwing the football. So, no, I'm with you, man. 100%. This is a fold 'em, right?
It is, unfortunately, and has nothing
Yeah.
to do with Allen Robinson, ironically.
No, and I think the same thing applies. That's a great point, and this is a good transition into what we're doing with our next player. Hit that thumbs up, please, if you haven't already, and make sure you are subscribed here to what we're doing on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show, the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Click that link, that Yahoo link, and sign up. You're going to get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, courtesy of us, with your first deposit and paid contest entry, $10 site credit to mess around with there as well. I think the point you raised about Allen Robinson totally applies here to Miles Sanders, which is it ain't his fault. If you are folding Miles Sanders, it's just not your fault. But here's the thing. This is why I would hold Miles Sanders, Ben, is because at some point, well, first off, he's their default #1 running back.
Yes.
And secondly, he's just been neglected. It's not like he's been given opportunity and failed. Even in the small opportunity that he's received, he's run the football well. So I would hold him just in the opportunity that he's going to get a chance or two, and maybe the coach figures it out, and all of a sudden they give him the ball a little bit more. But if you're folding him, I know it's not really because of him.
I'm with you. Obviously, if you're on this segment, it's not a perfect situation. So all these guys are going to have reasonable concerns. But I still look at the Eagles as a team. And part of this is because Jalen Hurts runs the ball. But if you look at rushing yards per attempt, the Eagles are 3rd in the league, over 5.2 per carry. Like when they run the ball, they run effectively. And some of it is Jalen Hurts getting out on the edge. Those are high valuable carries. But Miles Sanders is still a very good player. His role, it's not ideal. But I still think that's someone, it's tough because to fold him, I don't think you're going to get much of anything in the trade market. Dropping him feels a little rash. So what do? I think you're kind of forced to hold them.
Yeah, it's another element of it where if you have a lateral move, and I don't know who we would look at right now, maybe from a fantasy productivity standpoint already, or simply just from a kind of eyeball of where you would see that talent. But even if you have a lateral move and you're deep at the running back spot and you're comfortable putting him on the bench, I'm okay with that. But yes, I would not get rid of him, nor would I sit him for somebody who, is kind of like this as far as the difference. I think it would have to be more like this of a lateral move to really even sit Sanders. All right, Odell Beckham, and I don't know how you can hold on to this man. And maybe it's just because Baker Mayfield is playing through a shoulder injury, or maybe it's just because this offense down 2 running backs is even more exposed. But I don't know. How could you possibly hold Odell Beckham Jr.?
I mean, a lot of these things, of course, are, predicated on what do you have. If you're stacked, I think it's fine to keep Odell if you can, as a luxury. But if you're relying on him, it's hard to argue anything besides trying to improve or even looking to make a move because it's just not working. The Browns have problems at every single level right now. Their tackles are hurt. Baker is hurt. Baker also might not be that good. Both the backs are hurt. It's Cleveland, so the weather is going to become an issue later in the season. Like they play outdoors, obviously. None of these things are good for Odell Beckham. So in a perfect world, he would get healthier. Landry would come back. This offense will start being, at full strength. But when they're at full strength, Eytan, they want to run the ball. They're 1st in the league in rushing. So I don't think Odell has many scenarios where we see the New York Giants Odell, and that, of course, is disappointing.
I love it because if your reasoning is the quarterback may not be that good, then it's almost like a slam dunk that you have to find a pathway to get away from the wide receiver, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just no doubt that you have to look at these guys not just as players, but in those situations they're actually in. And a lot of them, that is the true killer for their value.
Saw Jerry Judy pop up. Christian Moreno on the chat asks, Judy and waivers, should I get in? And then tease the beast. They just said Judy less 50% ready to go this week. He has him on the IR already. So if Jerry Judy is available on waivers, do you make a play for him? I mean, or how about this? How desperate at wide receiver do you need to be to make a play on Jerry Judy at the wide receiver spot on waivers?
Yeah, I think that goes into part of it. The thing I like about Jerry Judy is we just don't know. We haven't seen him and Cortland Sutton and this offense really coexist for a lot, if ever, really, because Sutton was down with major injury, Judy was hurt. I think there will be opportunities for I'm not gonna say a prolific passing attack with Teddy Bridgewater, but one that's serviceable to a guy like Jerry Judy. So if he gets back and he's healthy, I still think that he has some value and he is worth picking up if you can afford it and you have room.
All right, let's continue here with a couple of more Hold'em Fold'ems. Again, chat questions pop up relevant to what's happening here from a trade, start, sit. Even if your own hold or fold them, we'll happily take them and answer. Leave a comment for us, and we'll get to them. Amari Cooper, maybe because the numbers are low, but that offense and how prolific it can be, if he's healthy, I don't necessarily see a reason to fold him.
No, me neither. This is just a product of, Dallas has an embarrassment of riches right now. And Cooper, he seems to be always slightly injured, but he's never injured to the point that, like, it doesn't seem like he's going to be just missing strings of games unless something really pops up. CeeDee Lamb, Pollard, Zeke, Dalton Schultz has been involved. The defense is better. None of these things are good, but at the same time, it's Amari Cooper. He's going to have some games. So that's one. I don't think that would be pretty aggressive unless there's a specific reason that you're looking to drop him for someone. I think you're not going to find anyone on the waiver wire who's to that level, even in a crowded Dallas offense.
Yeah, it's a great point because he's had that familiarity already, and it's just been a concern of health, which he's played through. Let's move to TJ Hawkinson, your guy in Detroit. Started out hot with a couple of nice props, and then I've even heard TJ Hawkinson's name mentioned on the Awesemo betting show. I feel like in a month.
Yeah, it's bad. I don't really understand what happened with Detroit. I knew they weren't good, but I thought that they would resemble the team in weeks 1 and 2 that would score and get outscored. Lately, they can't score at all. They did nothing against Cincinnati. I don't think this is going to happen imminently, but it does feel like Jared Goff could see the bench at some point, the way they're talking. And there's just not a lot to say. So tight end is always, again, it's a pretty thin position. I think overreacting and folding on TJ Hawkinson would be a little much because we've still seen elements of big time upside. But lately, it hasn't really been there. The last thing I'll say, though, he saw 11 targets in this week 6 game. It didn't translate per se, but that is at least a positive data point that they were looking towards him. He had 8 catches. It's just they only scored 11 points. That's got to change.
Yeah, that's the thing is the point total is what you're really working against. It's like an uphill. You have the best strategy to move this rock up a hill, and then you actually have to go and physically move the rock up the hill. And that's countering the low point productivity that you have to deal with. All right, let's get to our last one here. Myles Gaskin. This team, this offense, the quarterback scenario, I'll credit you. I think Lofty brought this up too last Monday, just about how much better or worse Miami really is with Tua as opposed to Jacoby Brissett. You're relying on one game that I think he stood out where they were down significantly and they clearly took advantage of a super soft defense. Are you holding or folding Myles Gaskin right now?
This is one I think I could let go. It's just a backfield that has no rhyme or reason. It's a dysfunctional team. They just lost to Jacksonville. It's just tough because I don't really understand what they're doing week to week with Malcolm Brown, with Ahmed, and with Gaskin. And I just look at his touches. Yeah, against Tampa Bay, he had 10 targets and he exploded. But if we take that game as an outlier, he's done basically nothing the rest of the year. It's a guy that's getting a handful of carries and a handful of targets at times. So unless they say, you know what, this is our true pass catching back, and with the quarterbacks in shuffle, Tua's now back, a lot of these variables on a bad team make me say, you know what, there are other guys that we'll talk about, emerging. I would rather probably see what else I could find out there.
So let's look at that. And we have a bunch to check out. And I know just from a visual standpoint to see a couple of different players, different positions of streaming now heading into a big bye week this week. As we know, Bills, right, coming up week 7. So as you see there, look at that. Chris coming through with, I don't know if you expected that, Ben, but this is
Look
through
at
the
that.
roof production here. You better keep up.
I mean, I'm going to try to keep up, but that's why we pay this guy the big bucks. He knows what's going on. It makes my job a lot easier because a lot of the guys that I think you're going to look to, of course, are on that list. And one of the common themes, particularly with the first two, I don't think they're great quarterbacks, but both of them can move. We saw Fields finally deploy some running ability, 40 yards, 43 yards. Daniel Jones, it was a brutal spot against the Rams. I think this is a much better spot against Carolina, who's got a good defense. Then you've got Carson Wentz, who I know at times a lot of people have taken shots at Carson Wentz, and a lot of them probably warranted. Lately, Carson Wentz has been fantastic. The Colts are playing much better, and it's credit to him. He's really looked sharp week in and week out. So these are the type of guys, with quarterback, it's always very soft. You can find some really easy plays if your guys are going to the bye week.
I know that Carr looked great against Denver, whatever that team was. I was so disappointed with the
Shocking.
Denver Broncos on both sides of it. Absolutely. And we saw a couple of guys on that list play well. Sam Darnold finally had that drive and a half kind of late in the game. But no, for me, Carson Wentz is, even with Daniel Jones and Justin Fields' ability to move, here's the one thing I know. Carson Wentz is not turning the football over, at least in the air. And I have to give him a ton of credit. He's taken some shots down the field over the last 2-3 weeks, and he hasn't turned the football over in the air at all. He would be a top option for me if I had to move on from a quarterback this week. It would not be Nick Leprie's Tua Tagliavoa in Miami. No, sir.
No, that's not the answer. But there's no doubt Carson Wentz, they're getting healthier. A lot to like there. Again, Jonathan Taylor, T.Y. Hilton, who got banged up already again, but it doesn't matter. The Colts look like a very functioning offense right now. And it seems like Wentz has found kind of a niche of not turning it over, still taking shots. He hasn't been conservative by any stretch. And that is exactly what we want to say.
I have to say, he looks pretty damn good out there in Indianapolis. All right, let's hit some running backs here and try and figure out who the best streaming option would be for running backs this week, especially, playing off of the bye. And as you see on our list, we have a couple of guys who are pass catch heavy or maybe pass catch dependent versus taking advantage of Nick's backfield. Anybody there jump out as the best option to stream this week?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to find, obviously, guys that are garnering the lion's share of work. You're finding guys that maybe contribute in one area. To me, I look at someone like J.D. McKissick. He's got a valuable role on the team. He had 10 targets last week against Kansas City. They're going to Lambeau. It seems very likely they'll be trailing. That's the perfect game script for him. And Gibson right now, it's just not happening. I mean, he had 3 targets, 10 carries. He's banged up. It looks like it might possibly getting worse. So I think J.D. McKissick is where I'm immediately drawn for Washington. He should be involved regardless. And he had 8 carries against Kansas City. That's something that's pretty atypical. You're going to give him 8 carries and 10 targets. Obviously, he's the preferred option.
So I'm going to go a little bit, not even outside the box, because technically he's inside this box of 5 players that we have here, but I'm going to appeal to the conversation we just had about Miles Sanders. I understand that Kenny Gainwell was barely in existence Thursday night against the Bucs. Did you have your look right there? Did you get burned on anything Gainwell related?
I mean, I had him in showdown. I played, on the DFS side of things, and it was just like I got a multiple texts pretty deep into the game being like, is Gainwell playing? And it was like, right. I think I've seen number 14, but I'm not positive.
So Tampa was a mess. The game script was completely on its head. Like, Nick Sirianni is a boob and he has no idea what he's doing. And it's pretty evident there. But Jalen Hurts seems to have a decent connection with Gainwell, when the offense is moving, when it's clicking, I think they stand a better chance of this offense moving over the next couple of weeks against the Raiders in Detroit. And Kenny Gainwell is going to see, again, when things are all working in the same direction, he's going to see targets and probably more targets than Miles Sanders. So just an interesting name that I'm sure is available for you out there, trying to make sense of all the chaos that's in the Eagles' backfield.
And he draws, or I was just going to say, he draws a Raiders team that I'm still not too worried about, particularly on their defense. So should be ample opportunities for him and for Miles Sanders in that game.
Raiders than Detroit, right? So
yeah, really good stretch.
Absolutely. And that's really where I think it jumps out the most. Wide receivers to now stream in week 7. So we'll take a look at this now. And yeah, a couple of people weighing in on the chat, Drake and McKissick for J-Dog, as far as the running back is concerned. Let's look at the wide receivers here. We know the Giants are in total flux. T.Y. Hilton is back, didn't even miss a beat. Christian Kirk dealing with 10 other guys now that are going to catch the football. Ruggs with a big day, and then Tim Patrick in Denver. Anybody specifically that you like the most?
So a lot of these guys are dependent on who else is in and out. We talked about Judy earlier in the show. Like Tim Patrick, I really do like him getting some work. He needs to kind of remain that second option there. You've got T.Y. Hilton. I want to see what's up with him. It looks like he got a little banged up. Shepard, I like, but I want to see what's up with Galladay and Tony for this Giants team. So I think Henry Ruggs is the burner. I think you get over the top against your defense. They're at home in Vegas. So I see that. I'm going to actually call an audible, though. I'm going to throw out one more. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, depending on what we see for Cleveland. We talked about with Odell, there's not a lot happening, but Donovan Peoples-Jones looked pretty good. And he's someone that if you're in a jam and you get the right matchup, he takes on Denver. It's not the worst spot for a guy like that. So I did see him. He caught a Hail Mary, but other than that, he still was pretty effective out there with Baker.
I'll say this. That's a fantastic option. And there's clearly big plays. You mentioned that we saw that with that huge play at the end of the half, but also just some trust factor. Even that's not going away for whatever reason if Mayfield is either out or playing banged up. To the Christian Kirk element of it, though, if I had my choice, and I'm going to throw it back to you as well before we get out of here and wrap up. If I had my choice of the 3 non-D-Hop receivers right now, I'm going to go with the guy who had it in him that's showing signs that he can have it back, and that's A.J. Green over the other two. Even though I know Rondale Moore has big play written all over him, and Christian Kirk is clearly somebody that Kyler Murray has a rapport with.
It's really tricky. I mean, it's a situation that week in and week out, it's certainly going to be in flux. And yeah, Rondale Moore is a burner. They get him the ball. They're giving him carries at times. AJ Green's more of that prototypical receiver, and Kirk can do it. But I'm with you. I think that I'm not drawn to Christian Kirk in any way. There's just so many mouths to feed there with Kyler. I would rather go some of those other guys. Like I said, the Vegas Eagles game, that's a good opportunity for the backs, whether it's Gainwell or Sanders or even Drake, who was on the list. And we did kind of talk about that. And then Ruggs on the outside. He has real opportunities with Derek Carr. Those are the type of teams to target this week.
Please hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel as we bring you the Awesemo Fantasy Football show Mondays and Fridays, 1 o'clock Eastern. We'll be back Friday. Savoca, Lofty, myself. Thanks to Chris producing, top notch, of course. And you out there on the chat, thanks to Yahoo, click that link below. You're going to get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, courtesy of us to you for just signing up, and you get $10 site credit as well. On your way out, nice little way to promote the Awesemo Odds channel. Any player prop or side or total that you like tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think we both kind of think Tennessee in that first half can stay in the game. It's going to be fun. We're going to be rooting for A.J. Brown for this chat. And the last thing I'm just going to Captain Spock just said this. Rashad Bateman is a guy to keep an eye on. I want to see what he can do in Baltimore. I really like his talent. We just haven't seen it just yet because he can't get on the field. So it's a long NFL season. There's going to be plenty to talk about as we get into the later stages. Even if you started slow for your season long, do not panic. A lot of time to make up. So thanks for stopping in today. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy the game tonight. Talk to you guys Friday.
See ya.